why don't we start off by just giving some context of how long have you been in real estate? What market are you in?
Sure. So I've been in real estate. I just finished up my first 12 months. So I've been in for a full year now. I'm just starting my first month of my second year, and I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Awesome. Very cool. Just got done with some storms down there.
We did. We
Yeah.
did. It wasn't
Yeah.
as bad as we thought. So yeah,
Yeah.
everything's pretty good in Orlando here.
Yeah. That's awesome. So tell us about like your production. What have the last couple of months looks like? Like what have you been producing? And then we'll kind of
Sure.
unpack that and talk about how you've been able to reach these levels of success.
Sure. So I joined about 4 months ago. It's been 4 full months now. Within those 4 months, I've been able to take 6 listings, and I actually just had my first closing today, earlier today.
It's
So
amazing.
that's been my production over the past 4 months of being in this program. As far as before this program, the first 8 months I've been in the business, there was no production at all.
Hmm. And that's what we're talking. That's what we're here to talk about. How was it
Absolutely.
that you were in this business for 8 months, got no results? We're going to talk about what you were trying, and then in the last 4 months, something's changed, something's clicked, and now all of a sudden, to your point, taking 6 listings in the last 4 months. Let's talk about that. So, rewind. 12 months ago, you get your license, you start in the business. One of the things I'm always curious about is like, what was your mindset going into the business with how you were actually going to get clients?
Brandon, I did not even know that real estate was sales. I had no idea. I didn't even know it was sales. I really didn't. So getting into it, I was completely blind to everything the business had to be about. I had no clue that it had anything to do with sales. Um, I kind of just had the idea that, hey, I got my real estate license, I signed up with a brokerage, and I'm in the office, some clients walk in, and I'll show them around some houses, and we'll get some closings in. And it is far from that. So that was my mindset going into it. I had no idea what the business was truly about at all. At all.
Interesting. It's so interesting. Everyone says that same thing. They think that they're going to get their license and go into the brokerage and people are going to walk in. Did someone tell you that that was going to be what it was like, or did you assume that was going to be what led you to that assumption? Like that's what you were getting into.
So one being the brokers. So all the brokers that I met with seem to have the same idea that, hey, you get some floor time in, we'll put you on the schedule. Some people walk in. And don't get me wrong, people do walk in occasionally, maybe once a month at my brokerage. There's a
Wow.
walk,
Not my,
but
no brokerages that I know. That's interesting. Okay. So you got
yeah,
people
so we
walking
do get a lot of walk-ins. We're in a great area, shopping center, but
in.
um, so we do get walk-ins, but it's about one a month. So it's nothing you can rely on. Even if you were to do floor time in our brokerage every day of the week that we're open, you at most would get one client a month, and that's it, nothing else. Um, so I would say the mindset came from more of my broker and the brokerages that I interviewed. They all had they all presented to me that, hey, people will walk in, and you'll grab them up as some buyers, and you can show them around, and we'll walk you through that process. And it wasn't that. It was the opposite.
Yeah. So when you realize, oh wow, this is not a you build it and they come model like most people think. I just go get my license and then people are going to find me. When you realize like, I got to go out there and do something. I mean, for 8 months, you must have been trying something. You must have been doing something.
I tried. Oh, go ahead.
Tell us. Yeah, what did you try? When you say I tried everything, I really want the audience to know, like, what were some of the things that you tried that didn't work?
So I want to say that I tried them, but now I've realized in order to actually try something and say it doesn't work, you have to be doing it for a long period of time, let's say a year, and you have to be doing it every day consistently. So I don't want to say that I tried everything, but I did attempt at multiple things. One, the biggest thing would be open houses. At this point, during those 8 months, it was over 50 open houses. And I did get some buyers in there. Never actually closed on any, but that was my main lead source that I used during those 8 months. Every single weekend, consistently, I was holding open houses at the brokerages as listings. Um, so that's one thing I did was open houses. The next thing I did was mailers. That was also what a lot of the brokers suggested I do. Send a bunch of mailers to the neighborhood. There's some great neighborhoods around our brokerage. They're like, everybody there knows about our brokerage. Why don't you start sending them letters, start sending them flyers? Well, that got expensive really quick. Sending it to three neighborhoods of 1,500 houses consistently every 2 weeks is really expensive, especially for an agent that's not producing anything.
So let me ask you a question about that. So you were
Sure.
doing 3,000 mailers per month,
It was around there, correct?
and how much did that cost you?
It costs me about 1,500 to 2,000 a month. I'll tell you, from everything I've tried during those 8 months, I probably spent about 15 to 20,000 trying everything under the sun. So it was open houses. I spent a lot of money through open houses. I spent a lot of money through mailers every single month for probably about 3 to 4 months until I realized I can't keep doing this. Being an agent that's not producing anything. Maybe down the line, yes, that's an option, but as of right now, I need to do something else. Um, and then I also tried door knocking. So those were really the three main, I would say, lead sources that I did try during those 8 months. And I'll tell you, none of them ended up working out. And I will say you can probably be successful in each of those, but you have to be more consistent than I was, not hopping around to each of those three whenever you feel like it. So I'd say that was a big factor as well. But those were the three main things that I did try during those 8 months.
Yeah, got it. And so what was the shift? Like, how did you, what led you to as a brand new agent come to this idea that, okay, I need help. I need to go out there and get a coach. I'm curious how you learn about what it is that we do here at the Inner Circle. And then we ask you to do something that's very, very difficult, which is to go out there and to prospect. I'm curious how you made peace with both of those. A, having to go hire a coach, and then B, do what most agents are looking to avoid, which is to actually prospect and do some of those other shiny objects that you talked about.
Sure. So you're gonna love this. So I was doing a shiny object. I was door knocking one day, and this was around the 8th month. And I won't say exactly where, but I was door knocking, and I knocked on one of your clients' doors. You're probably familiar. I think you coached him for 2 or 3 years, William Rojas. Do you
Yep.
remember? Yeah. So I knocked on his door, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm door knocking the neighborhood. There were some recent sales, and so I'm seeing if anybody else is open to the idea of selling their house." And he's like, where did you hear about doing this? And I was like, oh, I watched some YouTube videos. He was like, what YouTube video? And it was actually yours, Brandon. You were interviewing Dwayne Richens.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it sold 89 homes his first year. I'm like, that sounds great. Went out the next day, started door knocking, and I did do that for a while until I knocked on William Rojas's door. And he's like, so you watch Brandon Mulrennan? I'm like, yeah, I watch him. He interviews some great people that have success, and so I'm trying some of the things that I'm seeing. And he's like, why not actually be coached by him if you're going to watch his YouTube videos and actually do what he says to do and do what his clients say to do? Why not just actually get coaching? And I'm like, well, it's expensive. And he's like, well, how much production have you had in the past 8 months? And I'm like, nothing. And then I realized, well, it's expensive by doing the wrong thing for 8 months. It's more expensive to do the wrong thing for 8 months than to hire a coach, do the right thing, put the work in, and actually start producing. So that was the switch for me.
I mean, I hope that the live audience heard what you just said. I mean, it's the ignorance tax, right? It's so funny that, some people understand that and most don't. I was the same way. It's actually costing us more money and more time to continue to do the wrong thing than it is to make the investment into yourself and learn a proven system. And to your point, look how the results have shown for itself. So that makes a lot of sense. The fact that you have that type of self-awareness, Ty, with inside of your first year in real estate is incredible. That you said to yourself, this is costing me more money not to know what to do than it does to invest into knowing what to do. Incredible. Okay, so then you get into this world and we start working together. This was 4.5 months ago. And the thing is, what I ask people to do is not easy. It's not easy. but it's been proven thousands and thousands and thousands of times. What I'm always curious to find out is there's a difference between learning the what and the how and actually doing what it is that you learned how to do. For you, what was the thing that allowed you to roll up your sleeves and actually do the work that I'm asking you to do?
Yeah, it was definitely because I heard other stories like this. And and I heard some of your clients' testimonials, William Rojas being one of them. And one of the biggest things they said is if you do the work, you will get something out of this program. You will succeed. And so I thought the very first thing when I joined the program is I promised myself I'm going to do it. I'm not going to invest in myself and then sit back and say, okay, where's the business? I invested in myself. It's the opposite of that. You can join coaching, you can hire a coach, but unless you actually do the work, which I appreciate you say the only way you'll succeed in this program is if you actually do the work. And that couldn't be more true. So that's kind of how I motivated myself to do it, is because I heard other people that were actually putting in the work, not just having coaches, but they had coaches and they were putting in the work and they were succeeding. So that was really what went on in my head.
Yeah. Were you inside of our community? I mean, now we get kind of, there's a lot of people with inside the inner circle that are with us in the audience today live. You know, for them, the newer folks that have joined the inner circle recently, is there any best practices you can share with them with how to go about, because you learn so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And so you can get really overwhelmed, right? With all the stuff that I'm teaching you as fast as you're learning it. So any best practices there? And then how did you put yourself in an environment for you to win? Did you find role play and accountability groups with inside the community? What best practices could you share with others?
Sure. So some best practices that I didn't use when I joined was I didn't listen, right? So I looked at the scripts. I'm like, I could change some things here. I could change some things here. The listing presentation. Oh, I don't want to present this. I'm going to change this here. And by now I've switched it all back to exactly how you did it in the first place. So I changed a lot of things about how the program should be done on the front hand to what I felt more comfortable doing, saying on the phone, presenting to sellers. But now I found myself back to where you told me what you told me I should originally do. So a best practice I would say is simply do what you say. And as funny as that sounds, it does work. Instead of trying to change things, because I spent so much time changing the listing presentation to something I felt comfortable presenting.
Yep.
I changed the scripts to something I felt more fluent with.
Yep.
And I ended up changing them all back to how they originally were. And I should have done things how they should have been. So if I was brand new in the community, I would definitely go back and use the scripts as they're written. I would use the presentation as it's done because it works. It works.
Yeah.
Don't try and change everything, because that's a mistake I did make.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that, and we're going to really break that down in a second. Let me ask you a question that I bet you every single person in the live audience has had at one point in time as they join the inner circle, which is there's these two paths. And the question I get all the time is, which one should I take? Which is, one, should I learn all this stuff, Ty, and then start to go out there and prospect? Or, I see you shaking your head already, or should I just start prospecting now and learn along the way? Tell the audience what your experience has been.
So actually doing it and making the calls is going to be hard, regardless if you know the material, the scripts, the listing presentation or not. It's going to be hard. So lucky enough for me, I started calling the first day. I didn't have Vulcan 7. I didn't have Mojo. I didn't have anything. After getting my business plan done and knowing how many contacts I needed to make per day, I'm like, well, I'm going to make them. So I started by going on Zillow for sale by owners. It's free data, free phone numbers. So I started calling them and I started getting 20 contacts a day until I obviously got a data provider, a dialer, things like that. But starting the first day has been probably the most important for me, because that's what's kept me consistent is I never really miss a day. So it's really important that I actually start the doing the first day rather than soaking up all the information and you could take 6 months to read and watch every video you have. I've probably only gotten through about 25% of the content you
Right.
have. I mean, it's fantastic, but some people, when they join the program, I bet they do this. They soak up all the information, but they still don't make the calls. And you could have the best scripts, you can have the best listing presentation, but unless you make the calls, you're not making any money. You're producing nothing. So that was big for me is actually doing it the first day. That was
Yeah.
huge.
Spot on. And you're exactly right. I mean, we're trying to get people into action. The behavior that we're trying to get agents out of, which is what most people are guilty of, is this creative avoidance, this mental masturbation. And I hate to be so vague, but it's so true that people believe that the results is lies somewhere within inside of information that they don't yet have their hands on. And it's bad behavior because they get a new piece of information, they don't act on it. And they say, well, it can't be that. So now I know that. So let me go and get some more new information. Well, now that I know that, I probably can't. We call that the disease of knowledge. It's knowing what and how to do something, but not actually doing it for yourself. And so you've heard me say 1,000 times, the learning's actually in the doing of the thing, not in the learning of information. And so that's when the learning process actually takes place. When you actually deliver the buyer analysis part of the presentation is when you learn. Okay, so I like that. Now let's break down your business. All right, let's spend the back half of this breaking down your real business. So in your business plan, what is your income goal? Like, what does that look like on an annual basis?
Sure. So on an annual basis, my goal is to pocket 100,000. And after we worked out the numbers from my expenses, my splits, taxes, it came out to a GCI of 165 I need
Got
per
it.
year in
All
order
right.
to net 100,000.
Makes total sense. So 165 is what you've got to gross.
That's right.
And then you'll, after taxes, expenses, et cetera, split, you're going to net 100K. Okay. Now,
That's right.
I want to break down what you're doing right now to make that your reality. So what lead sources are you finding the most success with right now?
Expired listings.
Okay.
So I know we said this on the last coaching call. I submitted a question and we went over this. So my production, all of my listings, all of my appointments, most of my leads have come from expired listings. So the past 4 months, expired listings are probably about half of my contacts. The other half of my contacts and time prospected is from other lead sources, such as for sale by owners, for rent by owners, and a little bit of circle dialing. But my actual conversions have come from expired listings.
Yeah. And how many contacts are you making per day right now?
Right now, it's about 20
So you-
contacts a day.
and then the other contacts are older expireds based on the last coaching conversation you and I had.
Correct. That's right.
Okay. And so, are you doing any skip tracing of these the day prior of any withdrawals, or are you just getting the data whenever Vulcan supplies it to you?
So I actually started doing that. I think it was Tucker that sent a video in our community. I think it was Tucker.
Yeah,
Showing you how to get the early withdrawals
that's right.
before they populate in Vulcan. And that's helped me so much. I've gotten 2 or 3 appointments within the past 3 weeks of incorporating that. So I go on my MLS. I clicked withdrawn unconditional. I put the days 0 to 0, so it only shows me ones from today that have yet populated in Vulcan. And I draw a 25-mile radius, and I get maybe 5, 6, 7 a day. That the people that only go through Vulcan don't even see until 8 a.m. the next morning.
Got it. And then what happens from there? What happens at 11?
After 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
So I have my schedule right here. So 11 to 11:15 is cleanup. So I'm cleaning up all the leads that I've gathered. Typically, it's about 2 a day,
Okay.
sometimes 1, sometimes 3, but typically it's 2 a day. So I'm sending them the handwritten letter. I'm putting them in my hot, warm, or nurture folder. I'm sending them an email. I'm sending them a text. I'm putting them in my CRM. And I did just start using Mailbox Power. So for the warm and nurture leads, I'm now adding them to Mailbox Power. So
Awesome.
that's from 11 to 11:15. Sometimes that bleeds a little later if I have, three or four leads. Um, and from 11:15 to 12 o'clock is follow up. And so that's people I've talked to in the past that are qualified leads that I have in my notes that I should be calling them today. So that lasts typically about 30 to 45 minutes up until 12.
Love it. I love it. And we'll break down the afternoon in a second. Let me ask you about lead follow up. How important has that been in your business? And the reason I ask it that way is because a lot of people that focus a lot of their time on expireds tell me that the vast majority of their appointments come from that first contact. And so they haven't really benefited from like a pipeline business yet. But has that been the case for you, or do you still get a lot of appointments out of lead follow up as much as you're getting from the first contact?
Sure. So if you asked me this 2 months ago, when I'd only been in the program for 2 months, I would say 100% is from first contact. But the past 2 months, I've started to have pipeline maturity in which I can set appointments with people I talked to 3 to 4 months ago.
How
Um,
exciting is that? Like, I want
oh,
you to, for
it's
one second,
amazing.
Ty, because agents don't understand because they haven't experienced pipeline maturity. They hear me talk about it. They can intellectually understand it. Talk to us about how emotionally, how good that feels from benefiting from the work that you've done in the past today and like what that actually feels like.
I mean, it's amazing knowing every day I have people that I have leads that I have talked to 3, 4 months ago. It feels great to wake up every day knowing I have two or three people every single day that I'm calling up to set an appointment with that I talked to 2 to 3 months ago. It's great. I mean, if I compare that to my first 2 months in the program, I would wake up and I would have nothing
Hmm.
except the data that Vulcan provided. That's all the leads I had. That's all I had to work with. So it's game changer. It
Yeah.
really is. And if you look over the past 4 months, my appointments set, met, and taken have gone up dramatically. So my first month, I believe I only set two appointments, met one. The next month, I also set two, met one, and I took both of those. Now the past 2 months, I've set around six or eight each month, met with about three to four, and taken two each month. And it's huge because those past 2 months, half of those have been through follow up. So follow up is huge for me now. But if you asked me 2 months ago, my pipeline hadn't matured yet. But now that you ask me now, it's huge. It's probably half of my appointments.
Well, see, and that's just the thing, right? So you've been able to essentially double your business in the last 90 days by without having to work any harder.
That's right.
That's the key of a pipeline. You're still making 20 contacts and then in your lead follow-up, you already did that work. You're not having to work extra time to go from one listing a month to two listings a month. You've already doubled that by doing the work in the past. Now, I want to talk about phone skills before we talk about the appointment. This is really important. It's not enough for like when we talk about the income formula, we talk a lot about, activity or volume. Super important. You have to be able to talk to a lot of people for sure. But as important is you have to have a skill set because when you have those conversations, the skills will determine the results. So in the last couple of months, and I know you've learned a lot of advanced sales tactics, strategies, techniques. Are there two or three that you have found over the phone? Let's talk about the appointment separate. Over the
Sure.
phone, Ty, that has helped you to either generate a lead or set appointments.
Sure. Well, actually, the first thing, and I would say the biggest thing, is just the pattern interrupt. To begin the conversation, if you mess that up and half the people hang up on you, you're throwing away half the opportunities you would have had. So that is huge for me. Number two, I would say definitely disqualifying thoroughly because
Hmm.
you can set appointments, you can get to the end, but if you didn't disqualify them, it's with the wrong people.
Tell us about disqualifying. What is the mindset of disqualification? And then give us the technique of disqualification.
Definitely coming from, I would say, a level of abundance, right? Instead of trying to force leads, all you're doing is filtering, right? And you have to learn how to filter correctly. You're not forcing, and you talk about gumballs all the time. You can't force a blue gumball to be a red gumball. All you're doing is filtering it down to find the red ones. That's all you're doing. So if you learn to disqualify properly, all you're doing is filtering. You're not convincing, you're not pressuring, and the leads you actually do find are quality, and you can set appointments with them. So
And then, and
that's
that's the
huge.
that's the difference between, to your point, where you can go on, 3 or 4 appointments and take two, where there's a lot of agents that go on 20 appointments and get zero.
That's
Because
right.
that's the difference between going on, forcing an appointment versus a high quality appointment through the disqualification skill set. Now,
That's right.
right? So talk to us about technique. I don't know if there's, you want to role play your script and what it sounds like to disqualify or to set an appointment. But what is the technique you're using to set high quality listing appointments?
Sure. So my favorite question to ask when disqualifying is, I'm looking at pictures online. It looks beautiful. I mean, why not just stay there? And
Love
they
it.
fill out multiple dart questions for me. They answer them for me. I don't have to ask 4 questions to fill out my dart questions.
That's right.
Desirability. They fill it out for me. They start throwing up all of these reasons, and I only have to ask one question. Normally, they give me 3, if not 4, of the dart questions before I can set the appointment. So that's my favorite question to ask, because that's the one I found that that's really one of the only questions I might have to ask, and they'll fill it out for me. They'll tell me their desire, their ability, their reasons, their timeline. They'll tell me everything based off that one question. And I know a lot of the other agents love that
Yeah.
question as well. And because it works
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah, because you're actually making the argument for the first time to a prospect around the status quo, or for them actually not to move, when every other agent you're competing with is badgering them to sell. And so they don't, the prospect doesn't psychologically know what's going on. And so
That's right.
it happens so fast that when you make an argument for them as to why they should stay, it happens so quick. It's a response, it's a reflex, it's psychological reactance to your advantage. So now
That's
you're
right.
getting them to argue with you that actually benefits you. Well,
And
Todd,
the answers you get from that is the truth.
that's
Like,
right.
they'll tell you. They're not going to lie. They'll tell you their desire. They'll tell you their ability, their timeline, their reasoning. They'll tell you, and it will be the truth, right?
That's
Because
right.
you're not forcing them into any answer. If anything, you want them to say, we don't need to sell this, right?
That's
Hang up,
exactly
done.
right.
So it's game changer. People aren't expecting it. So that's probably my favorite part of the script for
Yeah,
sure.
super smart. All right, now let's talk about the appointment. All right, so you went again 8 months, you didn't get anything. Last 6 months or last 4 months, you're able to get 6 human beings that you've met with who saw something, who felt something, to the point where they signed a legal contract agreeing to pay you a whole bunch of money to sell their house. Ty, what are you doing? Like, what changed? Walk us through the presentation. What's happening there that causes people to feel so compelled to hire you?
So the first thing is really just setting the agenda, telling them everything that's going to happen, and then setting expectations for the end. And at the end, you're setting expectations to hear a yes or a no. Either way is completely fine, but you're walking away with a yes or a no. I'd
Hmm,
rather hear a no than I'll think about it. So that's been huge, is setting the agenda and truly getting them on the same page as you. The last thing you want to do is be butting heads the whole 45-minute conversation. So definitely getting on the same page is huge for me, because the rest kind of falls in place. And a lot of the work is really up front in setting the
that's right.
agenda. After that, you walk them through the steps, and at the end, you get a yes or a no. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so simple, but it did take me a little bit of time to learn that, and I'm still mastering that. But
yeah,
that's huge, is setting the agenda.
yeah. It takes a long time. I mean, I want to get even granular. Like, you talked about all these listings were expired listings, correct?
All expired.
Now, most agents, if I'm in the audience, I'm saying, okay, expired listings don't sell because of price. So how is it that you're able to get these listings and get sellers to come to the realization that A, it is the price, and B, what are you doing to get them to price their property correctly moving forward?
So you don't tell them the price. You walk them through how to find the price themselves.
That's right.
And typically they come up with a similar price that I would have priced it if I were to tell them that in the very beginning.
Yep.
Um, so through the pricing presentation part, you have them figure out what the home should be priced at.
Yeah.
Because I mean, most of these expired, they came off the market. It's for a reason. They were overpriced. So the last thing they want to do as well is overprice it again, hire another agent that's going to overprice it, have it sit on the market, and have it expire again. Um, so that's what I found. That's what I found, and that's what works best for
Yeah,
me.
it's great. So now that you have these listings, right? So another question is, especially with agents that are newer to being a listing agent, is they get a listing and then they actually kind of freak out again. It's like, uh-oh, now I got the thing. What am I going to do with this thing? So how are you servicing your listings? How are you finding, and this is newer for you too, like how are you
It
managing
is.
these client relationships so far?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes down to my daily schedule. Before, and you might think this answer is totally off basis, but it's not. So before, I used to answer my phone all the time. I used to answer my phone when I was prospecting. I would pick up all of my clients' phone number, all of their phone calls, and I would always be there. But what I've found now is I have a structure to my schedule. From 7:45 to 11, I'm prospecting. 11 to 12 is cleanup and follow up. 12 to 1 is lunch. 1 to 3 is servicing clients.
That's right.
And so it almost puts my clients at ease knowing they will hear from me between 1 and 3. Between 1 and 3, you will always hear from me, always, no questions asked. So although they might
Right.
call me at noon, they're definitely going to hear from me between 1 and 3 every single day. So that's huge. It also puts them at ease knowing that every day they can get in contact with you and they know what time it'll be from. So that not only helps me run my business, but it also puts them at ease. So I found that's a happy medium, and that works really well so far.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, it probably puts your mind at ease too. It's like,
It does.
because when you don't have structure and when you don't have an organization of like expectations of when your clients are going to hear from you, then you always feel guilty. You always feel the need to answer their call because you haven't set any clear expectation of when they're going to hear from you next. So you're always playing reactive defense versus being on the offense, and your clients know, okay, we know Ty's going to get back to us at 1 to 3, and it helps to give a better client experience, lowers their anxiety, and lowers your kind of your guilt factor. Would you agree?
That's spot on. That's
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah. All right. Now, I'm curious. Had you gone back and gotten licensed all over again? It's been 13 months.
Correct.
And if the Ty now could go back 13 months ago and see the Ty coming out of that testing center, you could probably remember the day. What would you tell that Ty based on what you know now?
You might hate me, but I might do the same thing over again because
Mm,
I'll tell you, once I joined the program, it is hard, right? It's not easy to make the calls. It is hard. But the only reason I did it was because the pain of actually making the calls was lower than the pain of having no business. So I think it
mm.
almost helped me to go through 8 months of nothing, spending 15 or $20,000 on everything else that didn't matter and being able to actually focus on one thing. And so I don't know that I would change anything because my pain was so high of not having any business. I was willing to actually lock in and do the work.
It's a great
Um,
point. No, it's totally fair. I mean, because what we know about motivation, and everybody gets this wrong, right? We are much more motivated by the by fear than we are by potential. Much, much, much more. And because you had that perception or perspective coming in to say, dude, I've already tried all this other stuff. I already know what's out there, and it didn't work for me. And I don't want to go back to that. And so I've got to make this thing work. And so that was a perspective that you're saying there was a lot of value in losing for 8 months. And
yes,
having that perspective was the thing that actually made you win, so to speak.
that's right. That's right. And so if I was a new agent today and I knew what I know, I might not change anything. I guarantee you right now I'd be a lot further if I did join in the beginning. But I think for me, it's something I had to go through. I had to fail in order to realize I need to lock in on one thing. I need to hire the right coach. And I need to put in the work. And so for me, I think that definitely helped out rather than, let's say I joined this program my first week in the business. I might try it for a week and say, this doesn't work. And I
So
would start
true.
door knocking and I'd start doing social media posts. I'd start sending postcards. So if anything, it helped me to not have any business for 8 months. But for everyone, it's definitely different.
It's
So
kind of like a for sale by owner, right? That's why it's like conversions of for sale by owners happen in 4, 6, 8 weeks because now they have perspective that they didn't have. They
that's
know,
right.
wow, how hard this is. Maybe I do need some help. That's kind of what you're saying. So let me
That's
just
right.
ask you this, and then we'll get your closing thoughts. There's still, doesn't matter how much evidence out there, there are still brokers and influencers and marketers and people in this industry that say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're cold calling." I still put this today. We make this in October 15th, 2024, as cold calling as the king of lead generation because of all the control that you have, the ability to get direct feedback from consumers, to be to be in a position to really control the amount of results you get and how quick it can be. Why do you still feel, and I don't know if you feel this way, I feel this way, I'm asking you, that there are so many people that are so against this, that want to convince people and use marketing messages that agents are hoping to hear, which is cold calling is dead, do this other thing. Why do you think marketers continue to spread that message?
Well, they're probably against cold calling because they tried it and it was too hard and they gave up and did something else.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, and it is
Yeah, I
hard.
mean, it's definitely not easy. So
The
it's just as
easiest
easy to give up.
the easiest marketing message of all time to get people's money is easy. So all they have to say is, well, that's dead. This thing over here is way easier. And especially realtors. I mean, with the shiny object syndrome that we all have, they just go running with the credit card. You know what I mean? Because this is
Right.
hard work. But typically, here's what we know is that if things are actually difficult, it's because it works. And the things that are
Right.
typically easy, it's because it doesn't work. You know, there is no escape of the hard work within any area of life. And this is no different.